This changes everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and while all eyes and all the focus has been on both the additions Treliving has made thus far and the upcoming moves that are on the horizon, there is something else that changes everything and will define the future of this Leafs team heading into the next upcoming season. We're going to break it down exactly what that is and discuss what it means going forward, as well as a few other interesting updates, including a move surrounding a former Leafs prospect. Ton to go over today, but before you get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage you aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been unbelievable there. So a lot to go over today. And again, the focus has been on Brad Treliving, both the moves he's made this offseason and the upcoming moves that are going to occur. However, we're going to take a step back now and talk about arguably the most important thing that will actually define the upcoming season. And that is something that surprisingly not a ton of people have been talking about this offseason. And that is Auston Matthews. And you can see here, there's some new reports and things like that that have dropped. But you can see 20 goals away. And we covered this briefly a couple days ago. He is now at 401 goals, just 20 away from Matt Sundin's at 420. And the thing I want to talk about in this video, we also have a pretty big update surrounding a prospect leaving the Leafs here. But it is a fact that Auston Matthews, you look at his stats, he is going to be the player who completely alters this season. If he puts up a pretty bad year, none of the additions they make are going to have any, it's not going to matter. If he puts up a very good year, they have Stanley Cup aspirations. So taking a step back today and discussing this, it truly changes everything, the impact that he can have. And if he A, remains healthy, and B, of course, has a good season, that's what matters by far the most, despite any of the other additions they could have made, because he's coming off of, quite frankly, not a bad year, but definitely an underwhelming year for his standards.
And I think even if Auston Matthews misses time with another injury this year, I think this team is still good enough to get to the playoffs and is still with him. They have Stanley Cup aspirations. I still think they're a great team, but I think this team to a degree will go as their captain goes this year. If he has a great year, like you said, they're going to look that much better, right? And if he doesn't have a great year and he's struggling, it's not going to be good for the team, obviously. But I don't think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to bounce back. If the only thing that would hold him back this coming season is the injury that he sustained last year or a new injury. That's the only thing that I think will hold him back. And last year, he's dealing with that injury problem the whole year. He still scored 30 goals, so he only needs 20 more to break the record. He's going to do it this year. He's going to be the leading goal scorer for the Toronto Maple Leafs all time. He's going to beat Matt Sundin this season. It's going to happen at some point this season. If he's healthy, it might even happen in November. He's been absolutely insane, 2022. And obviously that 2024 season, scoring over 60 goals. So I'm really excited to see what he does. I think the biggest thing for me, though, with the organization and some of the mistakes that they've made in the past is this guy, and I love John Tavares, and I think John Tavares was a great captain, probably should have been the captain earlier. He should have been the captain of this team. This is his team. I know why he wasn't named the captain back in 2019. That made a lot of sense, of course, but it's his team. So I feel like they're in a weird situation now where we've had one season of him as captain. We need to see more out of him as captain to really make a decision in terms of, is he a bad captain? Is he a good captain? We need to see a little bit more. And you're in a weird situation now where, 16 is gone. And obviously how is the team going to play, right? Are they going to take a step back? Are they going to take a step forward? I think it's a step forward, but they're in a weird situation now where it's like, you can only, make a decision now on that in 3 years from now. Right. So they're in a weird situation that way, but I think Auston Matthews is going to take a step forward this year. Maybe not even a step forward. He's just going to get back to playing his game, of course, because dealing with that injury all last year, he said he didn't need surgery. He should be feeling good for the season. And I think that's exciting for Leafs fans because it's probably going to go off again for at least 50 goals. And I think that they'll have a good season for it.
Yeah, and obviously I'm going to, you jinxed it last offseason when you said Matthews is going to put up 60 goals. So I'm going to do the reverse jinx and say that he's not going to put up 60 goals. So hopefully that way it'll cancel out and we end up getting an actual 60-goal year. But jokes aside, we think back to his injury, and that's something else that hasn't really been, spoken a lot about. I think talent-wise, we know it's there. Health, he played 67 games last year. Half of them maybe were healthy, like fully healthy. We saw, especially towards the end of the year, he was really looking not like himself. And into the playoffs, he was slowly starting to get it back, but really, wasn't. Looking back to January, you can see here, Matthew spoke about his injury. He was dealing with injuries most of the year, into the playoffs, all these different things. We still don't know exactly what it was. We know he traveled out of the country during the season. Like, there was a lot of things that went wrong with Auston Matthews last year. And I think, adding 30 points, and let's say Matthews puts up 100 points or around even what his average is over the past few years, which is between, 107 and 85. So let's just say 95 or 100 points. if you can't do this, it's kind of comparing apples and oranges here, but if you add those 30 points, you lost a little bit in Mitch Marner. If you have an actually great year from Auston Matthews, maybe he can replace some of the, obviously not the playmaking necessarily that Mitch Marner brought, but some of what Mitch Marner had. And again, coming off of a down year, and you add a couple other guys like obviously Michelli, Dakota Joshua, all those players. I think that's the biggest impact here, and something that not a lot of people are talking about, because we take for granted sometimes how good Matthews can be, and last year was so weird that it almost kind of just flew under the radar. And we think back to what Nick Barden said on May 20th. Matthews didn't reveal what injury he dealt with throughout the season, but he called it a tough year physically, and that it did affect his performance. And no one's really, been speaking about that this offseason. If he comes back healthy, which he should, the team's going to be in a way better spot, and I think can help compensate for what they're missing out in Mitch Marner. Is he going to, is his healthiness going to add an extra 100 points? No, and he's not adding another player. But I think if you pair that with some of the players they do add, and of course the vibe switch and the culture of players who actually want to be here, everyone they've acquired so far seem excited and elated to be here. I think that's what matters the most, and getting rid of the passengers, like Auston Matthews said following the Game 7 loss.
And a lot of people didn't like this comment, and I think I did like this comment. And the more time that has gone on, I think I like it a little bit more. I think as a captain, if he was specifically calling out like his fourth line, that's not a good look, of course, right? But he said that even himself, he has to look in the mirror. There was too many passengers, things needed to change. So I like that. At least he was saying that. If he just didn't say anything, it was status quo, and he said, I thought we played well, I would be more upset about that, right? So I'm glad that he came out and said stuff like that. And the other thing is, since the season ended, his leadership qualities have been called into question. We heard from Ryan Reeves that said, you can't be everything if you're a captain, right? There's different qualities that people have that bring to the table who are captains, and every captain is different. You can't have everything. You can't bring everything to the table. But Auston Matthews leads by example, and I thought that he did that in his first season as captain. He was injured the entire year. He sustained that injury in training camp. He came out and said that. Of course, we don't know what the injury was, but he came out and sustained the injury in training camp. He played the whole year. And he said that at times, and Brad Treliving said this as well, that it would flare up. It got worse, but then there was times he was feeling good. And of course, you could tell on the ice when he was feeling good. It looked like he was back in January. It looked like he was, back to his normal self. But he led by example. He was injured. He went out there. He was still hitting, right? And you can talk about how he doesn't show up in big moments. I see a lot of that stuff. I don't necessarily buy into that. I think that he does. There has been times over the last couple of years where he does score a big goal. He scored a big goal in Game 6 against the Florida Panthers this past spring, right? So I feel like he does. He leads by example. He puts his head down. He gets to work. There's some things that, of course, about every player that we don't like, right? And even with him at times, you're like, I wish he was a little bit more physical maybe, or, I see a lot of the comments, right? And what people are saying out there. So yes, of course, he's not a perfect player, right? But I think that he's a great player, and the Leafs are, it's good that they have this player and that he's the captain, and he just has different leadership qualities. So it's going to be interesting to see how he continues to blossom into that role. He's heading into his second year as captain. If he is healthy, I want to see how that, changes, how many points he can put up, because if he puts up over 100 points, the Leafs will be okay, right? If he scores 60 goals, that's fantastic as well, right? But it comes down, of course, always to the playoffs, and I think they have a better team now, a better overall team. So that's going to be exciting too. But I am interested to see how he takes that next step as a captain, because a lot of people are calling that into question at times. He doesn't seem like he's the most vocal. Of course, he talks to the media and all these things, but you don't necessarily see that on the bench sometimes. So we'll see how next season plays out. But I think that, he is a good captain, and he's still kind of, blossoming into that role.
Yeah, well, let's know below your thoughts are on that. A couple other things for wrap up here. Just a quick note. Mikko Kokkonen, he wasn't qualified by the Leafs in June, and now he is officially gone. So former, prospect, if you want to call him that, an interesting guy, played in the Marlies for a while. He will not be playing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's just yet another player who has left and didn't get a chance to go to Leafs. So Darius, any quick thoughts on this? Nothing huge, obviously. He was UFA, but it's happening a lot, but I do think the Leafs are doing a good job at refilling that talent. Guys like Luke Hames and players like that who have really started to soar up in the prospect rankings.
I think Brad Treliving's done a great job at kind of restocking the cupboard to a degree, whatever you want to call it, with the Toronto Marlies. So I think they'll be okay as a developmental program. But for Kokkonen, it's interesting because I think that there was a lot of hype around him a couple of years ago. But again, there's a new philosophy now, right? So a lot of these players, you're seeing them move on. They're going overseas. They're going to different organizations. The Leafs have a different idea of what they want in a player now, and he's not that. So yes, he had some hype behind him 5 years ago, 4 years ago, right? But at this point, they're moving in a different direction. So it didn't look like he was going to make the NHL or play at the NHL level at that point. So they're moving on. They want to fill in those gaps with younger players in the Marlies.
Yeah, let us know what your thoughts are on that. And hopefully more moves are coming soon. We'll keep you up to date every step of the way. We'll see you guys later.